Hi, my name is Vanessa Tailly-Mambro. I am from Quebec, Canada, and more specifically Montreal. I am currently doing a professional master's degree at l'Université de Montréal in political science, and I'm currently in Korea to do the internship for my master's degree at la delegations Quebec à Seoul, which in English would be the Quebec Delegation in Seoul. The Quebec Delegation in Seoul is a representation of the province of Quebec. It's not quite an embassy, but it kind of offers some of the services that an embassy normally would. The provinces are represented within the embassy. However, Quebec, for Seoul specifically, because we have a lot of partnerships and a lot of exchanges with Korea, we have quite a big team. So we are in a separate office and we offer services ranging from exports to investments and research and innovation, and also cultural services. When I started my bachelor's degree, I knew I wanted some sort of form of diplomatic experience, and I really thought that this was the perfect place to do my internship because it offered me not only the chance to represent my province abroad, but it also offered me the opportunity to come back to Korea since I did come study at Yonsei previously. So the application process was kind of long, but not that bad actually. These internships with the Quebec representations abroad mostly go through this organization called LOGIC, which is l'Office Jeunesse Internationaux du Québec, that translate to the International Youth Offices for Quebec. The application starts when you submit your CV and cover letter saying you're interested in applying for these internships. There's quite a few of them, ranging from the office in Morocco or the offices that are in the United States. So Korea was one of them, and I ended up applying. Then, depending on demand, there are actually 2 interviews. So they kind of pre-interview to see your motivation and if you're a good fit for the internship. And if you pass the first screening, then you pass through the second interview where the cultural counselor interviews you with someone directly from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Quebec. And their decision was actually quite quick because I got a response the day after. So that is sort of the process. I do a bit of everything and anything, so I think I'm more of a support staff, even though my title is Public and Government Affairs Attaché. I could do tasks ranging from writing speeches to writing publications for our social media, helping with planification, attending the events, and supporting the staff, translation, building documents. They also put me in charge of the annual report for their activities of last year. So I've been writing that and I take a lot of pictures. I'm really enjoying the activity so far because it allows me to meet new people and exchange with them and see a bit of their experience in their workspace. And I also get to experience firsthand what delegations do abroad. So I think it's really interesting that I get the opportunity to go to schools and listen to conferences or do cultural activities. So that's really nice. Including me, we are 12, so we're kind of a big team. And the composition is mixed. So we do have some workers from Quebec directly, and some are local staff. And surprisingly, some of my colleagues are from Canada as well, so Ontario, if I'm not mistaken. But they've lived here quite long, so I think they also count as local staff. Everyone speaks a little bit of French, so I think that is the first language we communicate in. I guess it depends who you talk to. If it's more like touchy details and complex conversations and the if the person is more comfortable in English, then we would switch. And sometimes my colleagues that are more comfortable in Korean kind of exchange in Korean as well. So there's a wide variety of languages at our office. Technically, each province should be represented within the embassy, but we are such a big team that we don't necessarily fit within the embassy. I believe that this way we could really maybe meet the demand more, since I think I mentioned previously that Quebec does have a lot of partnerships and relations with Korea directly. It really helps us to hear our companies or our professionals better who would like to come to Korea, or inversely, if there are Korean companies or researchers that would like to come directly to Quebec, like specifically, I think it's easier to transit directly through us. So as a separate delegation, we don't do any diplomacy, but we can really focus on anything economic and cultural. An example of activities that we do organize at the delegation is, we call them missions. And I think the most recent one that I personally participated to was what we called Mission MS, which is the mission for the Ministry of Graduate Studies, if I can translate literally. We received 3 Quebec universities here in Korea, and throughout the week we accompanied them to visit campuses and meet with schools, or we did also a symposium where some representatives from some Korean universities came to have what we call B2B meetings. So it's technically business to business, to have these meetings with the Quebec universities to see if there are any possible partnerships for student mobility or professor mobility, or even partnerships in research. So that was quite interesting. And I think that some of our universities are even coming back a little bit later to see if even more partnerships in research are possible, or to like delve a little bit deeper. Another example of this time an activity that we participate in, so we don't necessarily organize this one, but for the Francophonie week, Quebec is a member of the OIF, which is the International Organization of the Francophonie. Every year in March, I think it's usually the 3rd week of March, there are festivities to celebrate the French language, and we always participate by either giving conferences in Korean universities or directly to some French departments. And I think my favorite activity this year was the culinary festival, where we participated and we handed out a few Quebec dishes. This year it was poutine, pudding chômeur, and we had Quebec gin. And what's nice about this is all the profits accumulated through the sales go to charity. So it was fun, lighthearted, and we got to enjoy some of our local dishes. I think it certainly does, because it allows us to help other countries discover Quebec more directly outside of Canada as a whole, because we do have some particularities that maybe aren't shared necessarily throughout Canada. So this is nice that we get to really accompany Quebecers that are very good in their fields and that would like to contribute here or maybe sell their products here. And I think our most successful example would be the appearance of Quebec City in a K-drama, actually. I think that is the most cited example of when we talk about Quebec. The series Goblin actually takes place in Quebec City, and I think that tourism in Quebec for Korean citizens went up quite a bit ever since the show aired. So I think if we only take this example, we could say that it does have a considerable impact. The delegation always goes out of its way to promote the French language, Quebec culture, or Quebec arts. Specifically, we do have a lot of activities related to the arts. A more precise example would be Cirque du Soleil They do come quite a bit in Korea, and so we do accompany them when they go somewhere new. So I think in January it was their first time in Busan. So some of our counselors went all the way to Busan and accompanied the staff and organized some meetings with some key players in the field. So it's always a goal of ours to spread Quebec culture or Quebec arts. We do a lot of film festivals or music festivals. It could be dance as well. Comics too. I think anything that touches the arts deserves a place. I think Korean culture has been gaining quite a bit of popularity everywhere. So naturally that reflects also in Quebec. In which ways, if I were to say K-pop is more on display, we definitely hear more about it. I think there are definitely more classes in university than there used to be, which is, I guess, an interesting way to showcase Korea's popularity in Quebec. There are definitely a lot more Korean restaurants, so I do think that the Korean wave made its way to Quebec, most certainly. I think that the presence of the delegation of Quebec and Seoul could be beneficial to Korea when we look at partnerships and trades more specifically, or if we take a very specific example. I think it was last year, we have a few Korean companies in the battery sector that made their way to Quebec because Quebec is the perfect landscape to build a battery from A to Z. Just by having a delegation, we're able to maybe advocate a little bit for Quebec and present opportunities that Korea might not have thought of originally. So I think it is beneficial for Korea, but it's also beneficial for Quebec. If we go in the very specific, the topic that is gaining more popularity nowadays at the delegation is AI. We have a very important AI community in Quebec. This is definitely a topic to look out for in partnerships. We're definitely working towards that. Maybe a personal opinion, an interesting partnership to maybe delve more into would be cultural, as in Quebec also does have quite a strong presence in the arts. We have famous singers, we have famous producers. So I think it could allow a lot more projects like Goblin to take place, and I think that might be something nice to maybe explore. I hope that the relationship between Korea and Quebec continues to flourish and becomes even more stronger than it is.